Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 4 of Marvel's M.O.D.O.K. This episode actually, interestingly enough, kind of reminded me of the Harley Quinn cartoon, in the sense of like, alright, you like got this character who's basically working together with like C, maybe even D tier villains, which to be fair, he's kind of considered a D tier villain because he goes to like this particular club, and like the higher up is like, no, you're not even a super villain, get out. And he goes to like the bar with no name and runs into like some of those, like the leader, I think it was a Mr. Sinister, him, the dude that's beside him, I don't know his name. I only know him because of I feel like I've seen him in some animated stuff, but also like I know him because he's in the Deadpool video game. He's a villain you go up against. Not unless that's Mr. Sinister, isn't it? The dude, he looks kind of Dracula-ish. I think that's Mr. Sinister, yeah. But like, I only know him because like I said, I think I've seen him in something animated, but also like the Deadpool game. I know he's like one of the bosses you fight. But yeah, I just thought that was I love like they're the only ones I kind of have some familiarity with, and then we go to the bar with no name. I'm like, I have no idea who these people are, because like the robot chicken people, they're nerds enough to like, oh, like, I mean, they probably did their own research. They're like, no, let's pick from like some like legitimate like bottom feeder characters, like, because it's like, wow. These are probably real characters for like probably like old. It'd be interesting to know whether any of these characters are actually more modern or whether these are like deep cuts. Because I think even the Guardians were considered like a deep cut when it came to like comics, and obviously like there are more recent like versions and like reboots and adaptations of them. But it's like they were like super old school, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, I'm sure it's kind of like super deep cuts like the Eternals are as well. But it was interesting. Also, like, for example, one of them is a Poundcake. I was like, the entire episode, I was like, is that Whoopi Goldberg? Totally was. I didn't realize, I want to go back, because one of them was apparently Bill Hader. I heard a voice in this episode was Bill Hader. I was like, who did Bill Hader voice? I'm assuming he's got to be one of this, like, ragtag crew. But essentially, like, M.O.D.O.K wants to, like, steal Captain America's shield. And so he wants to use that as a means to kind of be like, oh, I'm cool. I belong with you guys. So he's trying to manipulate these bottom tier villains to help him, because at first they're like, nah, you're supposed to be, I love it, it's like, what was it, Armadillo was like, oh yeah, you're the bit brain guy, we're more like, you know, we're mainly fisters or something like that. And MODOK's like, I think I know what you think that means. But nevertheless, it's like, oh, like, he's trying to convince them to kind of get on a heist with him. It's like, all right, I'm going to have to lie to them until then they can get this, like, very specific boat. And it's like, oh, is it really going to be that big of a car? He's like, no, you can all share. It's like, yeah, we can all share in it, like, you know, the responsibility, not one, because, like, two people can share the boat and make payments on it and stuff like that. But it is literally a hot mess of an episode, just like him trying to orchestrate the plan. It's like, all right, let's go through phase 1, and then Armadillo's like, oh, to you, Tenpin, and everyone's getting their turn to like talk. I also love what's his name, Angar, freaking had that song because it was someone walked in there wanting to listen to Carly Rae Jepsen, but it's like, yeah, this is my band. Like, if you really like our lyrics, you're gonna like our concept album where there was a song about a woman who turns into a car and has sex with me. I'm like, what the fuck is this, dude? Also and I love that it's like the constant bit in the episode is about Night Loaf, and it's like, oh, like, wait, I thought you said it, like, wait, well, if it's open all night, then why is it, like, it's about to close in an hour? Yes, because once you get started, you go all night, and Angar's, like, pumping the air. Then later on, we find out it's open because it's a full moon, and they keep it open for the werewolves. I'm like, this. I even love later on, they show up at the place, and the guy's like, oh, and, you know, M.O.D.O.K's like, oh, I didn't know this was night-themed. He's like, it's not. And then M.O.D.O.K's like, that's so confusing. You're here talking as a knight. I guess that's just your shtick. Part of me is like, I'm wondering, like, I'm reading too much into it, because the Eternals is in, like, my mind, just because of, I think, the general Marvel fan zeitgeist, because of the movie and everything. I'm like, is that supposed to be the, Black Knight? Is that who he's supposed to be? Probably not, but that's, like, the only knight that comes to mind. There's, like, a lot of Arthurian stuff in the Marvel universe, isn't it? I think there is some Arthurian stuff, but maybe I could be mistaken. But nevertheless, it's just like everything goes wrong. They have to go to the pawn shop first because 10 pins pawned off his pins, and so MODOK gives the pawn shop dude, which I love the title. The place is the darkest. It's always darkest before the pawn. I'm me. I love me some puns. So that one, I was like, I like that. I know it's stupid, but I like it. I like puns. The fact is that he sold his weapon. The guy was like super into it, licking and stuff like that. It's like, oh, it's like, yeah, you might want to be careful before you cut your tongue off. He cuts his tongue off, and he's like, oh, that's good. Then later on, he's cutting off his fingers, and then he's threatening, like, because Armadillo ends up stealing a ring. It's like, my wife, she said we're going to work on things, and she pawned off a ring. He's like, hey, if you don't put that back, I'm going to do this to you. And he cuts off his hand, and he climbs over. It's like, I was like, what is up with that dude? That place, that was a weird scene, dude. It's just so twisted. They're also trying to, like, get jackets because they're trying to, for the team and everything. But MODOK said, like, if it's going to be anything, it's going to be like MODOK's 6. I also left out the best bit. They're illiterate. And he's like, wait, none of you can read? It's like, yeah, we got these hats and stuff like that. And then, like, Poundcake showed one. And it was like, wait, are they trying to make fun of us? And it's like, dude, oh my God. Even later on when Poundcake went to, like, her high school, she's like, yeah, these used to be, but, I would never see my name up here again. Oh, right, because you can't read. She's like, I might not be able to read, but I at least know what my name looks like. I thought that was great. The Melter wanting to open his own, like, grilled cheese, like, kind of food truck type of thing. Apparently Armadillo has been divorced for 8 years. The ring is like, yeah, but that's a ring I would have gotten you if I could have. And she's with someone else. I don't know his name. I also like the weekend nod to, like, oh yeah, really quickly. Once again, just stuff flooding in my head. Is like, right, Kang the Conqueror. Once again, name I never would have known. I think I've seen him popped up in animated stuff, but obviously he's supposed to be the main villain of the Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantum Mania, played by Jonathan Majors. Once again, it's just like, if it wasn't for the MCU, I'd be like, I probably would not get the little winks and nods here and there as much as I did. I was about to make a reference to something I forgot about last episode to talk about, but it's not really important. It's like a little reference. I was like, oh, I know what that is, but I forget it. And her new boyfriend, it's like, oh, he's apparently really well known, and he's got the kimono, and it's like, Armadillo's like, I'll fight you, but just close the kimono. He's like, no, this is the way it is, and he's just got his dick just hanging out. I'm like, what the hell? Also, I love the whole thing. Like, one of the team remarked, like, oh, she's definitely got a thing, like, for animal types, because she went from Armadillo to him. I really love, at one point, MODOK was like, did you say Armadillo? He's like, no, not unless you like that, because it was going to be like his team name or whatever. I love that they're driving the Adaptoid, and like he does the whole thing about pretending to be like, oh, a radio station. He's like, fine, I'll turn on the real radio. And then he's making God, what was the references he was making? I know one of them was like to the mask saying smoking, but there was something leading up to that was like, wow. And I love, like, Poundcake was like, what does he want from us? So also, like, starting crap with those kids in that car because they're like making fun of him. It's like, oh, look at him, he's full. Like, I don't know why I like stupid comedy where, like, you point, like, in the sense that, like, you point out the obvious. It's like, oh, it's like they hurt his feelings. Like, oh, look at him, he's so old and like his feelings are hurt. Oh, I bet you're so full of shame right now. I don't know why I really like bits where people like point out like the super obvious. It's like, it's just kind of like, oh, ha 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 ha, look at you, you're crying now, or something like that. It's a terrible example, but it's kind of that vein. But I also love that, like, they pull out a crossbow. It's like, holy crap, it's like, you guys are super villains and you're worried about a bunch of rascals with a crossbow shooting you. Also love at the school, like, MODOK's trying to motivate everybody again, and he's talking about, like, oh, this and that, 10 pin, it's like, oh, your fears, like, he understands giving into fear and stuff like that, because he's so embarrassed he couldn't even admit to Armadillo he knows exactly what he's going through, because, like, him and his wife are separate right now on the verge of I don't know if they're actually divorced, but he's like, no, I'm happily married, and I'm backing up the orgasm truck, like, every night or something like that. I'm like, Jesus, that's an amazing metaphor. Like, I'm backing up the orgasm truck. That's amazing. But because I think it's also the thing of, like, if it's going to make you feel that much like a loser, but also I think it's like saying it out loud continues to make it even more real. So I'm sure that's an aspect of it as well. But he's giving this, like, rousing speech of, like, what people are afraid of being forgotten. and he gets to Tenpin dropping things, and then he gets to Melter, and he's like, oh, like, the fear of, like, maybe you weren't, like, that basically you're not even worth having the fear of, like, failing or something like that. And, like, Melter's like, why was mine worse than everyone else's? I also thought was kind of interesting about Poundcake, too, was, like, the fact that she was like, because he was like, oh, yeah, like, because, you know, there was, like, a test, like a kind of like a piss test type of thing, and it's like, oh, you were juicing, and she's like, no, they found out I was a mutant. I was like, that's actually interesting. So they kicked you out, like, they got rid of all your records, because she's like, yeah, I worked hard and everything, but it's like, right, she was a mutant. And I was like, it's not an important detail, but it's such an interesting thing to be like, huh, in that world, they probably would be like, oh yeah, any records you have, because like, we have to discount everything you've done because you are a mutant, so you have an unfair advantage against everyone else that's a normal human. So I thought that was like it was meant to be just like a bit, but it's like, that's actually something interesting when you think about it too much. But obviously they ended up finding out, because M.O.D.O.K admitted like he was just using them, and he ended up getting left behind. They end up going to the night loaf. I love it. It's like it's raining, and he's like, oh, at least this way it covers up my tears. And goes into the night loaf, and it's like, oh, let's rob the night loaf, but the night it's there, and he's like, I hear everything. They're like, yeah, he just killed 3 people, but like, obviously it's like, I am one of you guys, and you know, Melter was like, hey, once we actually get the shield, let's like post it up in the bar with no name. And it's like, I love Moto. I'll be like, there you go, Melter's idea, which is just different enough from mine so I can't sue him. They get on a train like, yeah, we're gonna do this, and they fell asleep. But it's like, it sucked, but it's like, at the same time, it's like, they had so much fun and everything. Melter leans in and tells M.O.D.O.K the actual name of, like, the truck he's going to get, and it's like, how they're going to go off. It's like, yeah, we could go drinking and stuff like that, and then Melter dies. I was like, that's depressing. It's like one of the final scenes in the episode. I was like, oh, that's actually super depressing. I mean, to be fair, he was coughing up blood the entire episode, so he was definitely in a bad situation. I was like, oh, that sucks. Oh, and M.O.D.O.K be like, oh, and just kind of stays with him looking at the sun rising or whatever. I was like, that's depressing. Then on the other side of the episode, you have Jody showing up with Lou, because apparently in her book she lied and said that he had a nut allergy, but he did a video where he ate like 10 back-to-back paydays, and apparently that's what he was doing when he was at the daycare eating the Play-Doh, was training for that. And there's a teen section which he's with the girl, and it's like, oh, she's like, whoa, you're M.O.D.O.K's. I love that, because it's like, I think everyone probably has the same question. It's like, whoa, you're M.O.D.O.K's son? Huh, I have so many questions. Oh, wait, you're M.O.D.O.K's wife? I have so many questions. Probably the same questions a lot of people have, because also, like, why did Melissa end up the way she did, and Lou ended up looking more like a human? I mean, I guess it's kind of like the 50-50 shot of, like, you could probably end up looking more like your dad, or share some of your mom's features or something. I guess it's kind of something in that same vein. But it turns out she was there to try and, like, yeah, she was like, despite our complicated situation, I was kind of hoping that M.O.D.O.K could, like release a virus that could basically, delete, like, certain parts of people's memories, or actually make it so that he actually does have a nut allergy, which Monica's like, yeah, because I'm really good at what I do, I can make it. He's like, yeah, I made him allergic to nuts, I can also make him allergic to the color blue, or oxygen. She's like, no, that's good enough. And also Lou has an acronym for his name as well, and then the last one is like syphilitic, and he's like, I actually don't know what it means, but it sounds beautiful. He's like, shh, don't tell me what it means. So there was that angle of the episode, and it's like, so I guess we're gonna have more interactions on that front, but it's also interesting to know, like, oh, she has a daughter, and what that kind of means. Maybe like her and Luke can kind of hit it off and stuff like that, what that necessarily means. It's like a smaller part of the episode, but I'm still curious to kind of see where that goes, especially because M.O.D.O.K and Jody kind of hit it off like that. So we'll see. I'm interested to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward in the next episode. Are they actually still going to go through the plan without Melter? It's like, Melter's going, let's do this for him. I'm wondering, like, I'm curious, are they going to do the Harley Quinn type of thing of like, right, this is going to be like our cast we keep around, or is it like a one-off episode thing that he's just kind of abandoned now because it's like, well, we fell asleep, no point in kind of going up to that mission now. I'm curious to see where the next episode takes us with this. So, but really, that's all I wanted to talk about. To the next time we meet, I stumbled on that. Be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.